You say, and I quote, the sleeping giant buried in the CBO baseline is the rapid growth in interest. Government has gotten away with 2 decades of low rates, but we've amassed so much debt that the future costs will soar. Can you expand on that a little bit? What are you referring to?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when federal government issues debt, we have to pay interest on that debt. And for 2 decades now, the interest rates that we've been paying on our debt have been very, very low. But between the Great Recession and the COVID pandemic, we've and a couple of wars and a couple of tax cuts that we've all financed with debt. You roll that up, we've amassed a huge amount of debt, and those interest payments are now starting to accumulate. And when you take a look at the current baseline from the Congressional Budget Office, net interest nearly triples over the next decade. It triples. um, you know, Net interest will exceed the federal share of Medicaid by 2025. And it will exceed the entire defense budget by 2030. And the thing about that money, is it's not something that goes to anything productive. We're not building roads and bridges with it. We're not, providing health care with it. But it's not something that we can rewrite. Okay. When entitlement programs, for example, get out of whack, Congress can step in and rewrite those entitlement programs by changing the laws. Okay. So if they wanted, for example, to raise the retirement age for Social Security to help it be more solvent, they could do that. Okay. But they can't rewrite the debt contracts. Okay. The Treasury securities that we've issued to finance our spending, those contracts are held by other individuals, whether they're foreigners or, here in, people in the United States, retirement funds, et cetera. The government can't rewrite those contracts just because the interest is getting too expensive. Okay. We have to pay it. It is an obligation that is immovable. And that's what I think is really, really concerning about net interest.
One more question for you, Tori, and then I want to turn to Steve. But one of the things that people have been talking about for a long time, budget watchers, is that some of the trust funds, right, that were supposed to be supported by congressional action and appropriations, will be in trouble in the coming years. Now we've gotten to this budget window where some of the trust funds are going to have trouble within the next 10 years. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So people who've been following the Concord Coalition know that we're constantly talking about solvency in some of these trust funds when it comes to Medicare, Social Security, transportation, et cetera. And we've been sounding the alarm for a long time that a lot of these are not funded at the level of which we have promised benefits. Okay. Case in point, Highway Trust Fund. Okay. According to the current baseline, that's going to run out of money in 2027. The Medicare Part A Trust Fund, which pays for senior citizens on Medicare their hospital bills. Okay. That's going to run out of money by 2030. The Social Security Retirement Trust Fund. Okay. So this is the retirement portion of Social Security. That's just outside the budget window, but it looks like that trust fund is going to exhaust itself, by 2033. So all of these programs, all these problems that we've been warning about, and we've known this for a while, and it's not just like a year or two. We've known this for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. We've known that these programs were not funded adequately to sustain them in perpetuity. Well, those days of reckoning are now showing up inside the budget window. And in particular, in this budget window, the Highway Trust Fund and the